go and look at the business from a different perspective, analyzing the competitor. One thing I realized is that though this is not about the last session, but generally the session through the whole month, I was able to understand the laptops market, the uh, some data. I acquired some data about the statistics for household owning laptops based on the 2019 data, the growth projection of the laptop and tablet market between 2023 and 2025, which was quite interesting. I had never seen it from that side of it. And then you see the potential, and then there's some motivation to it. There's things will only get better. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I'm glad to hear you're already practicing some of the things learned in these sessions. So good to know. Keep doing it. I think when it comes to learning, the bulk of the learning usually happens on the job. Yeah. So when you actually put things into practice, experiment, go out and do research, that's when the knowledge actually sticks. Yeah. It beats going to school, beats being mentored, and beats being coached as well. So you just have to do it for things to actually stick. So I'm happy to hear that you're experimenting with your business and you're learning more about it. Maybe just to do some bit of recap. Um, Last week, this is just for Vin, so that we're not any at least you can catch up. Yeah. So last week we were looking at how to create long-term shareholder value with our products and services, and we were trying to answer three questions. So should we do it? Can we do it? And the related key performance indicators. So we looked at a value proposition, which is what you're bringing to customers. So it's usually something that looks outwards to the market because that's how they associate us. And that's how they are able to make a purchase if the value that we're providing for them is actually worth it. And then we also look at the value chain, which is the internal processes and activities a business typically undertakes to ensure that it is able to deliver the right mix of values to the end customer. We also talked a bit about strategy. It's more of like a fancy word for prioritization of the things we choose to do. Yeah. So we looked at different ways in which a business can attain value from its product and services. With the first one being the financial perspective, where we looked at productivity strategy and growth strategy. I think when you access the video, you'll be able to learn more around how it was a very robust conversation where we explored. So productivity is more around internal processes. So being able to improve our cost structure, so bringing costs down and also increasing the asset utilization. By asset utilization, if there are tools that a customer is supposed to be using that can potentially upgrade them from one tier to the next year to ensure that at least they're using that. A good example here can be something like Netflix and Spotify, where they usually have like different tiers of the application where um, for an individual you can spend this much, but maybe if you want to add on two or three more people, you can upgrade to a higher tier, and then potentially the business is able to raise more money from a single customer. So that's more around the productivity strategy. The growth strategy is more around diversifying the product portfolio and then also increasing the market size, which essentially means increasing revenue opportunities. So you can choose to grow by products, so having different products for different customer segments, or you can choose to expand your market size, which means either increasing the market within existing geographies. You can do it regionally, or even you can go international as well. And then we also looked at the layer that supports all those different things. It's more around where value is created from a customer perspective. We talked about different kinds of customers and what they value. So at some points, it can be one thing. At other durations, it can be a mix of these different things. So key considerations that customer usually takes into account whenever they're about to make a purchase decision: price, quality, availability. We also looked at things like choice, the functionality, and the service they're getting from the product. And then also for the emotionally driven customers, brand is a good indicator as well. We looked at all that, and then the processes, internal processes, grouped into four buckets, which is the operations, the customer management, how you process customer data, how you manage that onboarding process, how do you do your service, and all these other things. Research and development to actually help you with your innovation so that you can continue to offer long-term support to your customers and extend the longevity of the duration they spend with you, either engaging with you or spending money on your product and services. And then we also looked at the business environment, which means there needs to be some form of regulation and also perceptions from the society. So these are things like the legal frameworks that your business operates under. If you are in education, we know that you need to be accredited, you need to contribute to the qualification framework as stipulated in the Educational Act. If you are in the environment space, then we know you need to also be regulated. For example, if you are in the green energy, yeah. So things like handling waste once your solar panels have exceeded their lifespan. How do you actually handle that? Do you have things like recycling in place? Which laws do you need to play by? Currently, they are saying you need to actually be registered for you to do implementation of solar panels, etc. So looking at the regulatory framework and also just social constructs that can affect how you do business within the environment. And then also the learning perspective. So what are you learning about your customers, your staff, um, your industry, and then also the market in general, and how does that influence the, uh, the following three layers that are about it. So we looked at all that, and then we talked about how to validate product ideas, um, which we identified three layers. So viability answers the question, should we do this? And how you assess that is in the market size. Also doing a situational analysis to understand what's happening in the market. And then also looking at current competitors to get a bit of understanding of how peers see the competition. So that will also give you a sense of, is this actually a viable problem? And if the use of the space for you to actually come in and try and be a player in that industry. Desirability is more around how people want and value the product. And is there enough interest for you to actually start putting in the work to develop a solution for them? So here we look at things like segmentation, perceptions, just things like price, run focus groups and whatnot to try and get some better understanding. And then feasibility is more around the resources and capabilities you have in-house. The things like the time and cost. So depending on when you want to launch, that can also influence whether you'll be able to do it. The talent, we have the right people to develop whether it's the product or service, deliver the value that you want. And then we also look at capacity to execute and the tools you're using, because that can affect the first two. And then the business model is more around how are you going to make money. So that's kind of just a brief introduction of the things we talked about. And then we said if you have a mix of the three, like it's shown in the Venn diagram, then your product probably will have a high chance of success. You should probably focus and launch. We looked at some validation tools. We'll cover this later on. But yeah, we looked at ways in which you can validate the product ideas and your marketing together. So today, we're in the last session. It's been a month-long journey of planning, and we want to see what are some fundamentals that we should need to consider whenever we are either going to a new market, a new customer segment, or a new geography, or even launching a new product. So what are some key things we need to take into consideration? before we actually start. All right. So I'll start with the first thing, which is understanding the market structure. So this is a build up to everything we've discussed up until now. And the market, you can usually divide it into three buckets. So the first one is your primary competitor. And by primary competitors, I mean people who target the same customer segment, who have the same problem, and in the same product category, in the same while offering the same solution. A secondary or indirect customer competitor, they might be targeting the same customer with the same problem within the same product category, but they potentially have a different solution. So think of it like a substitute, or they could have a high-end or low-end version of something that we're already selling. And then tertiary competitor, so we could be talking to the same customer, but they're tackling a different problem within the same product category. So a good example here, let's say beverage versus food. Yeah, so it's the same customer, but you can either choose to drink or you can choose to eat. So those two things. So if you have a competitor, yes, they are a competitor, but in some cases, maybe you find you don't have enough time to actually sit down and chew your food. Maybe you can take something like yogurt, which is much easier to take and go on along your journey. So that is a good example. So I have some examples for you there. I will open it up to the group, and from the brands that I've shared here, I want to hear which ones are direct competitors and which ones are indirect competitors or tertiary competitors, based on how the information that I've already shared so far. So we'll start with the new people who haven't, because we need to hear more of the voices. Uh, Evelyn, I think we'll start with you. I don't know if Windows is back.
Sorry, Mark, just repeat the question again.
The question
So,
of each other.
sorry, which ones is what? I can't hear you. It's breaking.
Can you
Me, I think I can now.
hear which ones are direct competitors and which ones are indirect competitors?
Direct competitors, I would say, is Chicken Inn and Pizza Inn.
Mhm.
Sorry, indirect, and then uh, the same customer, and then indirect. Wow. Is maybe no. Your direct competitors are like your at cafe, your Chicken Inn or Pizza Inn. No, sorry, at cafe and Java. Those are direct competitors. Indirectly is Chicken Inn and Pizza Inn. Did I get it correct?
Right. So you've given us two ideas. You've said at cafe and Java are direct of each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you've said chicken in and
Pizza Inn. They are indirect
yeah,
competitors.
yes, the indirect competitors. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Philip, also, do you want to take a stab at it?
Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. Direct competitor, I'll go with KFC and chicken.
Evelyn, there's some background feedback from your end.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
KFC
Right.
and chicken in direct competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Then for tertiary competitor, I'll take Big Fish and KFC.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary, okay, that one I'll have to take a minute to check it out.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Wonderful attempt. You said KFC and Chicken Inn are direct competitors of each other. And you've also said Big Fish and KFC are they can be secondary competitors of each other or tertiary competitors, depending on how you look at it. All right. Cool. Windrose, do you want to give it an attempt as well?
For direct competitors, I can say Chicken Inn and KFC. Pia Galitos na Kukito. Indirect, I don't know, at Cafe Java. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's break this down. Yeah. When we started these sessions, we talked about doing an industry analysis and looking at the entire value chain and getting a sense of understanding around where different players create value for different customer segments. So to what Windrose has said, for example, KFC and Chicken Inn, they could be direct competitors. Direct competitors because in terms of like how the customer segment, so we know that they're looking at this the same person who can either who's interested in what's it called, this dining casual dining. Yeah, so casual dining is where you just walk in, has fast food, so it's easy to purchase, and food is sold like quickly. So all these brands, they're in the casual dining category. uh, they're targeting the same customer. So for customer who prefers to have chicken, that's who they're targeting. And when we say the same solution, here we could argue that the chicken is probably cooked in the same way. Yeah. So deep fried, uh, we know that there are those ones that are spicy and there are those ones that are non-spicy. So in terms of like how the chicken is prepared, the target audience, and then also the value that they're creating for that specific customer segments, we could argue that Chicken Inn and KFC are within the same category of competition. And then if we looked also at Galitos and Kukito, Windrose is also very right. These two brands are also direct competitors of each other, mostly because of the way their chicken is prepared. So they're both in the flame grilled category. So for customers who don't want deep fried chicken, they have these options, and probably these are the brands that they could potentially look at. And then you have your Pizza Inn. So yes, you could have your chicken, but maybe you can have it on top of a pizza. So that's kind of like a substitute. It's still within the same category of casual dining, but it offers a slightly different implementation. Yeah. So Pizza Inn can be a substitute to the first two. And then if you look at Cafe and Java, those ones are also direct competitors, simply because of the vastness of their menu and potentially also their pricing. And then Big Fish can potentially be a tertiary competitor because they don't have as robust a menu as Java and at Cafe, but they also don't have the same things that Chicken Inn and KFC and Galitos and all these others are selling. But we know that they are targeting the same customer, but they have a totally different implementation. Yeah. So essentially, when you want to go into a market, you need to assess your product and solution to better understand who are the key people that you'll be competing with. Yeah. So that means identifying the key substitutes and also identifying what are some potential substitutes or other players that might fulfill a similar or a related need for the same customer segment that you're targeting. Yeah. So that helps you identify who the key players are. And then you also get a sense of their pricing strategies. So if they're selling chicken, if it's a thigh or if it's a breast or if it's half a chicken, a quarter chicken, how much are they selling it? Yeah. The reason why understanding the pricing strategy is important is because it will tell you the best player in the market, how expensive are they? And then the cheapest person in the market, how cheap are they? And then also for everybody else who's in that space, what are the average industry prices for the same product category? So that gives you a sense of profitability and the margins you can expect. And also it gives you a sense of how much a customer is willing to pay depending on the level of quality of product that's being offered. So that already gives an indication of how you might need to price your product at the point at which you want to go to market with it. The second bit is positioning. So we will be understanding a bit of positioning as we continue in the sessions. But you can see these three brands, it's 8 brands are operating within the same category, but they've chosen to brand themselves and position themselves slightly different from each other. Yeah. So KFC probably you can say is at least when it launched in Kenya, it was an emotionally driven brand because we know that there are different customer segments. And as we said, some are driven by price, some are driven by choice, some are driven by quality, some are driven by availability, some are driven by brand. Yeah. So for a customer segment that is driven by brand, this means that they want to access a certain level of premium availability, or they want to belong to a certain community of individuals. Yeah. So if they see, okay, this is a brand that's coming, that's not really Kenyan, it's coming from elsewhere, um, um, and at least I know when I work with that bucket or when I work with that branded, what's it called, bag, takeout bag, then at least it reflects something about me. So potentially, it targets people within that category. If you look at Kukito and Galitos, these are brands that probably they would consider quality to be a consideration. So maybe you'd say these are people who are a bit more concerned about their health. So in terms of like how their meals are prepared, very mild on the spices side, no oils used, just flame grilled. So I know that at least I'm eating something that's not really has slightly less health effects. Yeah, if I could put it like that. And then your pizzas. So maybe pizza is a meal that's made for community. Yeah. So probably you can't have just like a large pizza by yourself. It's meals that are made to be shared. So probably for this specific brand, you'd find that maybe the positioning they're targeting is for people who prefer to eat in groups. Yeah. So that's who they're targeting. And then at Cafe and Java, probably the value they're offering to the market is that of choice, yeah, where you don't just have to settle on one thing. We have a very robust menu, and if you go through it, you can be able to at least find something that might fancy your palate, depending on what you're looking for within that specific day. Any questions around why it's important to do a scan of your market and identify who your competitors are, direct competitors are, who the substitutes are, and who the potential tertiary competitors are as well. Is it clear? Is it confusing? Do you want to continue diving deep into it? Let me know.
It's clear on my end.
Evelyn, Windows?
It's also clear on my end.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So once you've identified your key players, the next thing is to identify your customer segments. Number one, you want to look at the perceptions. So what do they think of current players in the industry and the product offerings or service offerings? And then also you want to look at their spending trends. Yeah. We've talked about situational analysis before. Different times or different economic seasons affect customer spending habits in different ways. Yeah. So like currently, like in Kenya, we're being overtaxed everywhere. the price of goods is consistently going high. So some things that might be seen as nice to haves, you might find that spending is slightly reducing on some of those categories, and potentially being budgets are being refocused on areas that provide more utility, either to the individual, or the family unit, or the business unit as well. So let's get a bit into that. Yes, so while you are ranking your competitors also, it's important to do a risk analysis. Yeah. So risk analysis, you can look at your competitors in a number of different. So just aside from the product and the customer segments they are targeting, you want to understand how do they make management decisions. So go back into their history, try and understand how has their product journey looked like in the past. Operationally, how are they structured? So are they only doing servicing one part of the supply chain or the value chain? So are they in production? Do they do the marketing themselves? Do they do the packaging and the distribution themselves and such like, yeah? Where do they source their materials from? So for example, like in KFC, we know that in the past they used to get their potatoes. Um, they used to import all their potatoes, their formula, and probably maybe the chicken was what they would get locally. A brand probably like Chicken Inn, maybe they get their potatoes locally. So if you compare the different kinds of fries that are prepared, is there a difference between the fries that you get from KFC versus the fries you eat at Chicken Inn? And how does that translate to what customers love? So you also want to look at their operating leverage in terms of like the activities they've chosen to do in their market to create the mix of values that is going to the customer. So if you find that customers prefer maybe fries that are coming from KFC, or if you notice that maybe people are just coming to buy chicken and maybe they're not buying an accompaniment, then that could potentially also let you know that this competitor has a slight operational leverage compared to you. So how do you want that to also affect your strategy? The next thing is risk management. So, for example, when it comes to things like regulations, um, market shocks around pricing, and in terms of like the current economy, things like PR nightmares. So maybe, for example, I'm going to eat, I found a cockroach in my dish. How do they actually handle all those things? Do they have a team that takes care of that? When it comes to things like staff and the training, because a brand promises a certain level of quality to its customers. So how does that affect the people they hire? For example, like recently I learned that at cafe, you don't necessarily have to be a skilled cook um, or a skilled chef to be in. Like all of them usually get in. And don't quote me on this, by the way. Just a disclaimer. This is word in the grapevine in terms of like how it's going. So everybody gets in and you're rotated. So today maybe you'll be in the kitchen, tomorrow you'll be on table duty, the next day maybe you'll be on dishes duty, and then the managers will decide, okay, these are the best people to have in the kitchen. Personally, that's what I'd say it has shown up in terms of like the quality of food, in terms of like taste. I tend to find that their food is a bit bland, but that's just my own experience. Whereas in some restaurants, you might find that maybe you have to have gone to culinary school for you to actually be able to work in the back office. Yeah. So things like that. So you want to understand what are the competitors doing to ensure that they're able to create a certain value to customers. The other thing you need to look at is their funding and liquidity. The reason why funding and liquidity is important, maybe I'll open this up to the team. I want to hear your suggestions. Why is it important to understand where your competitors are getting your funding and liquidity from? Anybody can volunteer. start picking on people?
I think it will be you'll be able to know you'll be able to have an indication of who's being funded more or who's being funded the best. Also in terms of the dollar rate, the euro rate, the pound. I don't know, something. It gives you an indication also on the state of the funder, because if they're funding from a country with good governance, it means that they're looking to invest for a longer period
Mhm.
and they're
And,
looking to opt out. But if your funding is from a sketchy place, I mean, you can also assess how long they will be. You can also, I don't know, look into can
mhm.
see if they are serious investors or if they will drop out at some point. But if your
Mhm.
funding is coming from Seychelles or Maldives, maybe they are trying to, what is it, clean wash, lack of
Good
a
point.
better word.
Good points. And what would you say about liquidity?
Uh, I don't know. I have to think about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your attempt. Valid points raised as well. So you also want to see who they're in bed with, to get a sense of also how they make decisions and how they respond to certain situations. We'll come back on that. Philip, do you also want to give it an attempt? Why is it important to understand how much cash reserves your competitors have?
I'll try. This enables you to know how you position yourself competitively with your competitor, because if they have huge funding muscles, you will know how to approach the competition and how to get your clients to how to differentiate yourself in the minds of your clients. That's one. And then with liquidity, at times when you enter into a business, you need to have an exit plan. You might have checked all this data and it has given you maybe a view of the business and the market. But once you are in, you realize things are totally different on the ground. So sometimes you need to have an exit plan. For them, maybe with the level of funding that they have, they can make decision on how to stay afloat and exit the market. Yeah.
Wonderful. You've come also to the points I was looking for. So the reason why it's important to understand who your key competitors are is primarily for these three reasons. Yeah. When it comes to funding and liquidity, number one, it's more around how much runway do they actually have before they run out of money. Usually, it's a bit difficult to gauge that, especially if it's a private company. It means probably their books are closed. But depending on who is funding the operations, you are able to get a good understanding potentially of how much backing this company has. The reasons why that is important, if you're going to get into a market, yeah, and we've talked about direct competition, we've talked about tertiary competition, we've talked about secondary competition. It means you're entering into a space where there are already other people are playing in that space. And if you're targeting the same customer with the same problem within the same category with a probably similar solution, then it means you want to take some customers away from them. And as such, you can expect that they are going to respond to you being in the market. A good example potentially is the safe borders that we are talking about. So when safe border came into Kenya, um, suddenly we started seeing people preferring, depending on where they are, some people started preferring to use the services over maybe let's say the likes of Uber, the likes of Bolt and the likes, probably because you could beat traffic, but also because of how their riders used to conduct themselves. So the cleanliness, you'd be given like a helmet as a passenger, you'd have a helmet, you'd be given something to put over your head. And then also just how they handle you and how they navigate within the city. It was something that created value. And then how did the competitors respond? We saw Little Border, we saw Uber Border, we saw Bolt Border, and the likes. And essentially, what happened is these people now, because they were unable to compete, it made it difficult for them to sustain their business operations. Philip has also talked about something very important, which is differentiation. Yeah. So if you remember the initial phases when we're talking about differentiation and distinctiveness, yeah, where we said if you're serving the same customer, offering the same solution, and also targeting the same needs, you are in a competition to be the best. And if you're competing to be the best, usually it doesn't really work out well for you, because essentially what that does is it leads to a pricing competition, because a customer can get, it doesn't matter who the customer gets the service from, because they're offering the same level of quality, same level of utility. Yeah. So in this instance, you find that the customer has more power than the companies that are operating in that space. And that means prices need to be lowered. And if prices are being lowered, and for you as a business, if you look at your balance sheet and you find out that you don't have as much reserves as the next business, that means potentially your runway might look a little shorter than another company that has more funding and a slightly bigger runway. That's number one. So that's why it's very important for you, even as you're looking at the market, try to identify a niche within that market, or even if it's the same customer segment, try and see if you can offer a slightly different solution to what competitors are offering. So that's one way to know. So if you find yourself in a market and you're pushing the same solutions that is already saturated in the market, then the marketing department is going to have a very big problem to actually convince customers that they should pay higher for that service. And also operationally, it's going to affect some of the decisions you're going to make. So that's why it's important to also understand from a competition perspective, where who are my people, who are the competitors, and also how much backing and support do they have. Another reason potentially could be um, with access to funding, they are able to do a lot of research and development. So that means if you come up with a new solution that's not highly differentiated, they could potentially just invest in the money to add some of the services or products you're offering onto their portfolio. And that essentially means they've been able to defend their customer segments or market size. Another thing they could potentially do is they could just come in and poach some of the best people in your team. So that is why also things like having things like values, having things like a clear mission and vision is important, because sometimes the people who are working with you to achieve success for an end customer or to help you hit your vision, some of them you might find, depending on where they are in their career journey, some of them might be more driven by a vision, some of them maybe might be more driven by cash. So if cash is the thing that's driving them, then potentially you might have an issue. So that means even for you, you've already started coming up with your own risk assessment in terms of like, okay, if I go into this market, this is how I can expect competitors to respond, and this is the plan that I will have to counter the competitors. Does this make sense now, or should we dig a bit into it as well?
Makes sense.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So after you've done an assessment of your industry, you've identified who the key players are, and also you've done some risk assessment of your competitors, and in terms of like the soundness of their strategy, the expertise they have in terms of like their operations, the financial backing you have. You now want to start looking at your customers, because these are the people that you'll be talking with. Yeah. So depending on your business model and category in which you're playing, um, there are about these five persona segments that you can consider. if you want to work with. So the customer, obviously, the one in the middle, these are the people who are actually consuming your service or product. Yeah. In some instances, you might find that a consumer might double as a decision maker. Yeah. In the sense that they are the ones who are actually paying the money. Yeah. In some instances, you might find that the consumer is not the decision maker. They might need to go and actually consult. So in the beginning, we started by possible reasons why customers say no to your product, and one of them was permission. So I need to ask for permission. I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my mom. I need to talk to my dad. Yeah. So in some instances, so for example, like Philip, in your case, you have a mix of people who are decision makers, so and consumers. So where, for example, like for me, if I want a laptop, I can come to you and I know I'll be able to afford it, I can get it. But if you have potentially maybe a segment of people who are still on campus, maybe high school as well, um, they might come and they might see the laptop that they want, but potentially they might need to go and talk to their financer. Yeah. So whether it's a parent or a sponsor, um, they might need that kind of support as well. So you want to also understand who the key players in terms of like customer segments are in your market. So we talked about the consumer, we talked about a decider, we talked about right now we also want to talk about influencers. Yeah, so it's a term that's loosely thrown around in social media circles, but basically influencer is somebody who your key customer, they value the opinions of this specific audience. Yeah. So these people are able to shape the opinions of the opinions and behaviors of your consumers. So for example, like in the what's it called? In the late 80s and 90s, when Oprah was just coming up. Oprah was the Beyonce of the days. Yeah. With that talk show, the kind of topics she used to cover, family, relationships, what's it called, uplifting women, because women have had to also come a long way due to, I don't want to say challenges, but in terms of like how the society has looked at, think we understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So Oprah was fulfilling that need, and at that point, she had a lot of influence in terms of like the way households and females, in terms of like what they think, the kind of things they pursue, whether it's in their relationships or at work and such like and such like. So you want to also identify who are some potential people that might shape the opinions and behaviors of the key people that I want to talk with. Yeah. And then you have initiators. So these are people who realize that there's a problem to be solved. A good example could be, let's say, in your family. Yeah, you have a young brother or sister who's in probably, let's say, upper primary. Um, and then you notice maybe potentially they are not really performing very well in class, but you've identified that maybe they're a good artist, or maybe they love to dance or something like that. And then you go and say, Mom, Dad, I think maybe we should consider taking our brother or sister maybe to a creative school where she can get a chance to um, nurture her talents, yeah, and her desires. So in that sense, there is also somebody who's identifying that there's a problem, or there's a problem to be solved, and they kickstart that conversation. And then in certain businesses, they are gatekeepers. So there are some people who cannot make decisions without consulting, and sometimes they also influence the level of access you can get to, whether it's the decision maker or the consumer. A good example in the B2B space, assuming maybe you're selling things like enterprise management softwares, and you want to sell it, let's say, to things like the director of operations. Yeah. So we know that this is going to help the director of operations because potentially maybe it has things like a human resource management module. It has things like inventory management. It has things like relationship management, and then maybe things like performance management. Yeah, you track how your employees are doing over time. But we know that that company also has a CFO, and at the end of the day, the CFO is the one that is responsible for ensuring that the books are in order. And if you're going to purchase an enterprise management software, that means it's going to come to some significant cost to the business. So in this instance, you might find that the CFO is the one who's controlling the entire process, while potentially they're not the decision maker and they're also not the consumer. So also try to understand how can your marketing or how can your positioning essentially speak to more than one person. Yeah. So you want to ensure that at least those value elements are very clear so that as you go out with your messaging, then they can each see the value so that if the consumer decides to approach either of these other individuals, then their decisions can be validated. All right, so we've come to in terms of like how you can understand your consumers. So once you've identified who your potential influencers are, you've identified who the decision makers are, who the gatekeepers are, who the initiators are, and who their influencers are. You want to get a sense of their mindsets. Yeah. So looking at what customers say versus the things that they think about, trying to get a connection. We talked about research methodologies in the previous classes, and we try to understand how can we get much closer to the truth as it relates to your product and service. So, 4 key areas that you need to think about when you want to get a deeper understanding of your customers. Their needs. So, needs are basic features and functionalities of a solution to their problem. So, I'll ask a question. Philip, what was the last thing you bought? Philip?
For myself, or buying something, just
Yeah,
making up
just in general.
in general.
Mhm.
Maybe new, bringing in new stock for the shop.
New stock for the shop.
Yes.
So when you're bringing in the new stock for the shop, what are some key things that you consider?
The key things are the price from the supplier,
Mm-hmm.
the increase. The last 2 weeks we have had an increase of clients, so the increase was there, so we had to ramp up the stock.
Mm-hmm.
3 was the quality of the products coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Price, quality. Those are the 3 major ones that I consider.
Okay. So Philip is in the computer space, so he sells computers and related accessories. And for him to get his products from a supplier, like he's mentioned, so price is a very key consideration. Yeah. So if let's say we have productivity laptops, we have ultrabooks, which are kind of like the very light laptops, very portable. And then we also have, let's say, maybe if you call them budget laptops. Yeah. So if Philip is buying either of those categories, maybe he has to also consider prices because prices affect his margins. Yeah. So that is one consideration. He's also talked about quality. So are they brand new laptops? Are they refurbished laptops? Are they quote unquote XUK laptops? Yeah. Depending on the customer segment that Philip is going to look or is marketing to, it influences the kind of laptops that he'll take and those ones he'll not take. Yeah. And then probably maybe another piece, Philip, that you've not mentioned is more around availability. So in terms of like time, yeah. So for you to, if you make an order today, how long will it take before the supplier gets the laptops from their warehouse to your location? Are you getting them? Are you shipping them in, or do they already have something in house? So that means the needs. What are the core needs? The basic features that Philip needs from a supplier of computers. Yeah. So they need to have a good price. They need to have the desired quality, and they also need to have the right availability in terms of like the timelines I'm looking at. So those are the basic things that Philip potentially could be looking for as they continue to as he continues to make purchase decisions in terms of like updating and upgrading his inventory. And then the next thing is motivations. So motivations are biases that might influence um, purchase decisions. Yeah. So, for example, Philip, yeah, what would make you leave your current supplier and maybe choose another supplier?
Okay, so one of the key things that makes us change supplier is mostly we deal with refurbished laptops, and unless we are selling to a company or an office, or is a special request from the client. So with XUK, there is a sometimes you realize there is the issue of some laptops fail after some time, especially the battery. So if we realize there are returns, more returns from a specific supplier, and is not ready to change or maybe offer the warranty agreement clearly, we simply change to find another one. That's the
Mhm,
key thing that we look at.
mhm,
Then there is the issue of availability. Sometimes you realize a client, you will wake up and a client calls you, I need a laptop with specific features, A, B, C, D. You don't have the laptop, but sometimes you realize when you call the supplier, you also don't have. But are suppliers who you are almost certain that if you call them now, in the next 1 hour, you will get that laptop.
mhm,
So we consider that. So most of the suppliers that we work with, they have they rank high in the availability charts. Yeah.
mhm. Awesome, awesome, cool. So as you've seen, for example, when it comes to Philip's motivations, um, the first thing they want to know that if I sell this laptop, it's not going to come back to me, because if it comes back to me, that means I either need to refund the customer or I end up damaging my reputation. Yeah. So as a laptops dealer, it is very important for him. He's driven by his reputation, whereby if you get it from me, there are no chances you're going to return it because it's going to meet and potentially exceed its purposes. And then also availability. Yeah. So I know whenever a customer comes to me within my space, I should be able to fulfill a need. It might not be today, but maybe if we wait a bit, we are able to get the customer whatever he's looking for. So this is just on Philip's side, but Philip also has competitors. You might find that there are other competitors who are more driven by um, price. Yeah. So if they're driven by price, it means they want to get higher margins. So you find that these competitors might not mind actually selling laptops that maybe have a shorter lifespan, maybe missing some parts, maybe not like properly refurbished and whatnot, simply because theirs is just, I want to move as much volumes as possible so that I can get the money. So once you understand from a customer perspective, in terms of like what they're looking at, what they're looking for. So now this is Philips, Philips, is it Philips says or Philips in plural, yeah. So Philips's suppliers looking at Philip as the customer, they know that Philip is motivated by number one, getting my products at the right quality, ensuring that there's right availability, and potentially the pricing, although the pricing sometimes the market determines the price. But I know if I have available products and I can deliver it to Philip within the good time, then I know I will have that customer for life because I am um, tackling the key motivations in terms of like how Philips makes purchase decisions. So that is how you look at it. And then aspirations is more around the future state, yeah, the future state of your customer in their journey. What are they trying to achieve, and where do they want to go? It can either be as an individual or as a unit. A good example is um, when a customer, even for us, there are things we used to buy and do that we are currently not doing. For example, like in our campus days, kulikuwa na zile viatu kwa Supra, yeah? Who remembers Supra na Shambhala, and there were all these other things that we used to do that were potentially cool. And at least at the time when we were doing those things, we felt like we were fitting in and it made us feel good. But as we've continued to mature and have different objectives in life, you find that that also reflects in terms of like how you dress, where you spend your time, and the things you buy. So if you have a proper understanding of the journey that your customer is going to, yeah, you are able to think about their future state, and your product is able to evolve with them, and that ensures that you're able to keep them longer in the buyer panel. Yeah, in essence, what we call customer lifetime value. So a good example, for example, like for Philip, yeah, you know you're currently selling laptops, but at what point will you say you will get to your dreams? Like what vision do you have for your business?
Okay. So currently,
Mhm,
uh, we are majorly our market segment is we are dealing with students and families.
mhm,
So our laptop, our margins goes, the average pricing is around 40,000 or 40 to 45,000.
mhm,
But we are looking at a situation where we can get into the gaming space
mhm,
and creatives, where will be most of our will be around 2,000 people. That does not mean developing this one, but we can just grow and get to that place. Then the second is being able to import our own in laptops imported for ourselves from outside. Currently, we only do import if it's for offices. Now you see the margins of that can cater for the transportation costs and all that. But for individuals, it's for the supplier, then get from there. But we are looking at a get can do the importation. Yeah.
mhm, mhm. Wonderful. So if I was potentially somebody who's a supplier to Philip, I'd try and understand where this person is trying to go. Yeah. So you say he's saying currently he's supporting students and families with the laptops, but at a later point, he might want to increase the margins that he has with the business. So that means maybe targeting somebody who has a higher order basket value. Yeah. So if you go for a high performance machine, probably the margins there are slightly a bit better. But he's also mentioned something very important. Later on, he also wants to see if he can do the importing himself and maybe potentially cut out the middleman. But for Philip to be able to get to that level where he's actually importing, it means he also has to contend with a number of different things. So, for example, um, who is doing the shipping, who is doing the sourcing, and who's doing the clearing at the airport or at the port. Yeah. So Philip might need to have resources that can help him do all that work himself. So if I was a supplier and I'm looking at Philip and I want to ensure that I'm able to keep this person as long as I can in the pipeline, it might be that I already know how to, what's it called? I already know how to ship, I already know how to source materials, I already know how to do clearing and forwarding, depending on the different customs jurisdictions that I potentially operate with. So is it possible for me to maybe potentially come up with a side product that can just help Philip fulfill that purpose? So it might be that today I'm the one who's selling him the laptops, but maybe the product or service that I might extend to him in future might look slightly different, and it might be in the logistics space as well. So as a customer, as you continue to create, as a business person or as a product person, you need to think around the vision that your customer has, and then try to. It's almost like you're trying to anticipate how their journey is going to go. So some of these aspirations, they might be aware of them. Some of them they might not really even be aware of them. So always try to see what additional value can we create in the future. In the beginning, we talked about Safaricom and how they started. For them, their vision was to make communication accessible, free and free and not free. Sorry, to make communication accessible and affordable to all Kenyans. Yeah, they had a vision to reach all Kenyans, and that means that even in their products, when a cancel scratch card was going for 500 shillings, Safaricom were the ones who launched their first 100 shillings. And then they even brought that down further to Bamba 20, Bamba 30, Bamba, and the likes. So going into the affordability, that means they are um, making their products more accessible and tied to the vision of enabling communication and making it more affordable. They went a step further. They launched Senior Journey. So if you don't have a mobile phone, you know that you still like to get some communication with whether it's your people. How about having those services available? Taking it a step further, when you look at their network coverage in terms of like their presence, they were present. They didn't just target the high net worth individuals like Kensel at the time, but they were actually in the ground. They were in the ground, in the estates, in the bus stops. That's where you find where the scratch cards were being sold and whatnot. So still ties into their mission of making communication accessible and affordable to all Kenyans. Yeah. And then even later on when they launched Please Call Me service, yeah, you realize that yes, I want to communicate that potentially I don't have money, but I know potentially that the person I want to communicate with, they have money. So how about if I could just have a facility that would let this person know that I want to talk to them? So that is how innovation, according to the journey that your customer wants to go in, you are able to consistently meet even their future needs because you are listening to them and you're also anticipating. Uh, for example, something like Please Call Me, even before it came, probably nobody had even thought about it. Yeah, but it is a feature that we saw that people even use nowadays. And then pain points. Pain points are more around current dissatisfaction or negative experiences with existing solutions. Yeah. So, for example, in Philips' case, if a supplier is not delivering their products on time, if I'm getting very many returns than I'd like, then I know that I don't have a good supplier. But maybe the price is locked me in at the price point. Yeah. But as soon as somebody else comes in that can offer me a similar price point with fewer complaints, then it means that I might consider leaving my supplier. So I want for us to do an exercise where we try to understand, we pick a customer segment. I think it's good that we are just few. Let me, just a second. Any questions as I'm getting my things together? Are we still in the code?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Everybody, please enter into the link that I've pasted in the chat. I can only see Philip there. Evelyn, Windows. Windows. Evelyn, you with us? Hello. Evelyn? Philip and Windows, yeah? So I want for you guys to take a few, decide on a customer segment or an industry, and they try to assess their needs, motivations, pain points, and aspirations. Is the ask clear? Philip, Windows?
Yes.
Is the task clear?
You have said their needs, aspirations,
Motivations. Needs, motivations,
and pain points.
aspirations and pain points. Pick a segment. So start talking. I think I will exit the call. Not exit per se. Let me see if I can create an group chat, side chat. So kidogo tu, I'm creating a breakout session. All right, so I'm putting you guys in a breakout room, breakout session. I want for you guys to talk about choose any industry. Yeah, it can be in the laptops industry, it can be in the beauty industry, it can be in education, it can be in tech. But choose one industry, and then okay, no worries. And then what you can do. Okay, so Evelyn, I'll put you back to the main call. So Philip and Windows, I'm giving you 5 to 6 minutes. Pick an industry and then try to see, um, place the customer in these 4 boxes. So feel free to add sticky notes in terms of like what a customer might need, what their motivations are, aspirations, and pain points. And need basic features that they expect. Yeah, motivation, things that can influence their decision making. Aspirations, what they're trying to achieve in the future. And also it can be a vision, and it can be how their path looks like within the same product category. And then pain points, these are negative emotions or dissatisfactions with existing solutions. So 5 minutes, we'll come back after 5 minutes. Put a timer. All right. Cool. So it's just me and you, Evelyn. How are you? You are unable to talk.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, Ma. Sorry, I had to
Hi.
drop out.
Oh, you've gone for a while, eh?
Yeah,
Okay, no worries.
Pole.
You're back now?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I was doing something at the same time.
I
So it
understand.
was, yeah.
Okay. Philip Windrose, did you manage to finish the
We ran out
conversation?
of time.
Uh,
We ran out of time, but we had noted down a few things.
okay.
Yeah.
Who from the two of you will present to us?
Uh,
I'm at the car.
yeah.
Philip Windrose, do you want to present? Yeah, just share a screen and present. There's no right or wrong answer. It's an exercise, yeah? Philip Windrose,
Hello.
do
Uh,
you want to please walk us through what you discussed?
okay, I won't be able to share the screen. I didn't note them down on the screen, but I had penned them down before time ran out. For the industry, we chose to serve the diaspora market. We,
Um,
pardon?
so Mark, for
Yeah, we can hear you. Hello? Internet trouble. Philip, go ahead.
Okay, for this market, we have had issues with people sending money back at home to do their errands. Then somebody somewhere decides to eat the money, and when they follow it up, the money is gone. So we didn't come with the exact company name or something, but what the company will have been doing is running errands for them back at home. Their names could be running the errand, be it maybe construction or purchasing something. The aspiration could be their motivation is for them to choose us as a company. We need to have portrayed trust, honesty, and being able to serve them right with the making them right the money, putting the money into use. And then we didn't get to the pain points, but we were going to aspiration. Aspiration was to get that specific errand done. Yeah, maybe if it's home, it's the aspiration is to get a home. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hey, you've identified a market that I don't think is really um, offering a very unique solution. So Evelyn, before you dropped out, there was a breakout session. We were doing a customer empathy mapping exercise to understand how these four buckets can influence how we position ourselves as a brand. So for Philip and Windrose, they looked at the diaspora market who are looking to invest or perform certain errands in their countries of origin, which is the need. So we need to ensure that whether it's investing or performing certain tasks, it's being done. And then they've looked at the motivation. So what might potentially make somebody in the diaspora choose their company over, let's say, their relatives is more probably there needs to be guarantee that their investments are going to be secure. Maybe proof that maybe work is already happening. I don't know if there are things like testimonials. So maybe potentially there might be testimonials from people who've worked with the company before. Um, what else? And maybe also course corrects, and maybe in case things don't go according to plan. Yeah. So do they have those things implemented? And then aspirations, it just depends with the outcome that the customer is looking for. Maybe they want to own a home, maybe they want to have a diverse investment portfolio and things like that. Pain points, like he's mentioned, things to do with trust. So I send my money, 3 years, I come back, money has been spent, but there's nothing to show for it. So here is more around issues to do with trust or perhaps even the quality. Yeah. So yes, the investment has been made, the house is there, but maybe it doesn't meet the quality that aligns with the money that was spent. So I think we are starting to also at least get some bit of understanding around how to use this tool. Essentially, in any product category, if you have a good understanding of these four buckets, then you are in the good space to understand who your customer is. And then you are able to craft your marketing communication to fit into any of those buckets. Yeah. So you can speak to a customer need, you can choose to speak to their motivations, or you can speak to their future state in terms of like what they're looking to achieve. And then also when you want to differentiate in the market, you can choose to tackle and specifically target your communications to the pain points. A good example, when Evelyn and I were working together at Ringia, we had OLX and we had Pigiami. Yeah. So for OLX, the issue that they were facing as a platform was that there were a lot of conmen in the platform. People were getting robbed. People were sending money, and the person like goes in, disappears with the money, and sometimes even the things like quality and whatnot were being things of questionable quality. Yeah. On the other end, Pigiani, it was a slightly smaller company, but they had better moderation. So in the sense that anything that is posted on the website has to go through moderation to ensure that it receives the right checks. The images are seen to be of like a good quality and whatnot. They also had something called verified seller, where you could actually verify yourself either through your ID or your phone number for you to be like what's it called? A real business entity, and people would do that. So during the time where like there was a lot of complaints around the OLX platform having a lot of conmanship and subpar quality, Pigiami actually went and came up with a campaign around safety. Yeah. So they had a tagline, Kenya's safest online marketplace. Yeah. So this is how potentially doing an empathy map of your customers might help you create messages that align with any of these four boxes. So it just depends with what you want to prioritize as a campaign at that time. Any questions on customer empathy mapping before we proceed? Is it clear? Comments?
Yes.
Yeah. Windrose?
Um, could you kindly explain the difference between motivation and aspiration? Like, I am
Okay.
confused with the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So assuming I want to take you out on a date, yeah. So a motivation could be I want to be seen with a nice lady, a nice looking lady. Um, a motivation could be I want to have a good time. So maybe I'm taking you out to dance and such like. A motivation could be maybe I want to become your friend. Yeah. So the motivations are the reasons behind why people make the decisions that they make. Yeah. So if you take this into a customer perspective, for the customer to make a purchase decision, what is the underlying reason behind that? Are you actually able to investigate and understand what has driven that decision? Yeah. So if I decide to eat today at KFC and not um, chicken in, what was the reason behind that? So you need to do some bit of research, run some focus groups, and ask clever questions that can help you understand the underlying reasons why people make certain decisions. So that is a motivation. An aspiration is more around the future state. So if you look at an individual, what are they trying to become in the future? In the example that I've given about taking a lady um, out for a date or something like that, maybe an aspiration that I might have is that I want for her to say yes to being my girlfriend for the hopes that I'm going to marry her in future, for the hopes that we will start a family together at some point. So you can see that there is, it's not just about the now, but it's more around the future state. So aspiration, when you're looking at a customer aspiration, you're trying to understand in their lifetime journey, what are some changes that they might face that might also influence how they make decisions. So for example, in the beginning, when you are just starting out dating, probably you just wanted to interact, meet new people, have fun, go back home, rinse and repeat. Yeah. But as you continue to grow, probably maybe you've already now understood yourself a bit better, and you're a bit more choose in terms of like the individuals that you let into your life. Yeah. So, for example, if you're going to spend your time, let's say a person of the opposite sex, that relationship maybe has to be fulfilling, potentially, quote unquote, a deeper objective for you because you are seeing that it is going to serve you in the future, not just like for the now. So that's how you differentiate between what a motivation is and aspiration is. Aspiration is more around the future state as the customer continues to develop into their being or into their business. Does that clarify it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Any questions here, evening?
No questions.
Okay, cool. So back to presentation. All right, cool. So we've understood our market. We've done a risk assessment of the competitors, and we've identified our different personas, influencers, decision makers, initiators, and gatekeepers. So now what we want to do is to get ready to launch. The next thing we also need to do is to understand customer perceptions. Yeah, so this is how customers perceive the current players and the current product offerings. Usually, a perception map will have two different axes. So one is around quality, and the other one is around price. Yeah. So in any market, depending on the customer segment you're targeting, remember in the beginning we had that slide that had low price, medium price, high price. Yeah. So for the low priced individuals, probably they don't care a lot about quality. They just care that the product or service is delivering a certain utility for them. So for example, something like tissue paper, something like maize meal, ugali, yeah. So you might find that as long as I know the unga ya ugali, as long as I know that it is tissue paper, then here I don't potentially like really care about the quality. But on the other end of the spectrum, we also have people who care about quality. So for example, when you still look at the same ugali, when you still look at the same tissue paper, maybe here you find audiences that are saying, okay, I only use tissue paper that has been created using virgin pulp. So this is kind of like the whitest and the most purest of the purest tissue papers. I only use tissue papers that are three ply, 4 ply, because maybe they're more durable, more absorbent, and the likes. Yeah. So for them, they're willing to pay slightly higher, even though it's within the same product category, but to get a higher quality. In the example we have in the deck, we have phones, yeah, and everybody needs phones to communicate with their loved ones, at work, or maybe just to stay entertained and be reachable at the end of the day. Yeah, but not all phones were created equals. You have your flagship phones, so these are kind of like the top of the line, top specs, top features. And then you have your mid-range phones, so these are more. They have some features that are high-end to some extent, but they also cut back on in some areas. And then you also have your affordable slash budget phones, where it works, it has the same features as the others, it's only that probably slightly lower quality. So as a brand or as a product, you want to also get a sense of where will your product fit in the market. So for example, in Philips' case, there's productivity laptops. So these are kind of like the high spec laptops where you have your um, HP Elite books, Spectres, the Envy, um, um, Dell XPS, like those high-end laptops. This was Gokoju, yeah. And then when you come towards the mid-range, probably you have the pavilions and the lower spec elite books and such like. And then maybe now when you go towards the mini, it's still the same laptop lines, but probably the processor they are using are things like Intel Celeron instead of um, uh, the Core i5s, the Core i10s, and the likes. Yeah. Same thing with phones. Low quality, low price. You have your Infinix, your XTG, and ITEL mobile phones, where you know their target market is for people who price is a very huge consideration for them, and they just need the basic functionality. Do I have a phone book? Do I have WhatsApp? Can I access Facebook? Um, can I take a picture and can I listen to my MP3 songs? ITEL solves that market segment. On the top of the line segment, I need a camera that has 40 megapixels. I can do 4K video shooting. I can edit my videos. I can work on that machine. What else? When it comes to battery life and durability, I know I have that. It comes with IP rating. I can dip it in water. It won't shut itself off and such like. So that's where you kind of like have your top of the line. So high quality, high price. And then in the middle, probably I can still shoot 4K to 8K videos. I can still record, but maybe instead of having my phone made up of glass or metal, maybe it's plastic. It's sort of like a plastic build. So in the mid-range place, you find similar specs, but they cut corners in certain areas. Or maybe I can shoot 4K cameras, but my storage only goes up to 64 GB, the likes. So as a business or as a product person or as a marketing person, whenever you want to launch in your market, it's always good to understand how customers perceive existing solutions. And how you can find out some of this information is in the research methodologies we talked about. Go and look at reviews, um, conduct focus groups, assess features, try and see can you get numbers in terms of like which units are actually shipping, and get a sense of what people are saying about those product categories. And then when you map that, you are able to see where you lie. And then now, if you take into account the average industry pricing where we say it gives you an indication of how much you can potentially make with your product. Yeah. This is important because of these 4 reasons. Yeah. So in any market, there is what the customer needs, or what they want. Yeah. And then there's you and your competitive or unfair advantage, which means you can do it, whatever it is, whatever solution you have for the market, it is better than anybody else in the market can do it. When it comes to what the competitor does best, sometimes a competitor can do other things better than you. So how you want to understand how much of a problem or a challenge you'll have when you enter that market is you try to see where does your customer sit, where does the competitor sit, and where do you sit. So the winning zone is the customer wants that thing, and you're the only person that can do it better than anybody else in the market. So when you have that mix, then you have a lot going well for you. You can set your own prices. You can go ham. Yeah, it won't be very difficult for you to scale your business. On the other end, there's what you guys do best. The competitor also can match your value, but the customer doesn't really care for that product. So that is what we're calling the dump zone. Yeah. So yes, you have this product. The competitor also has this product, but it's not something that the market really needs. Yeah. So you end up competing with each other, and it's more like a losing battle. So a customer can choose to either use your service or the other service. It won't make as much difference to them. And then there's the losing zone. So where there are more mature competitors and they are able to offer better utility, better quality, better choice, better service, better branding than you do. And the customers actually want that solution. So in a market like that, even if you are to penetrate and customers really don't care for the solution you're coming with, then it's a losing battle. So don't waste your monies. Talk to your management team. Tell them no, you need to go back to the drawing board and refine the product as well. The risky zone is where the customer wants that solution. You're offering similar service at similar quality. Your competitor is also offering similar. Have gone. Just a second. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, KPLC wamefanya ile kitu. Uh, KPLC wamefanya ile kitu. You can hear me though?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we were talking about, I don't know, at what point did you lose me? Hello? Hello?
You were talking about when the customer wants the product.
All right, cool. So when the customer wants the product, you're offering the same solution as your competitor. It's a very competitive, that's a very competitive market. Yeah. And that means potentially you could find yourself in a lot of price wars because the solution is not very heavily differentiated. To win in that zone, you can move with the speed. So that is kind of like first mover advantage. If there's a new feature or if there's a new product that you're launching, get ahead of it in the market before your competitor does. You can continue to innovate, refine. If you have a huge, if you're very liquid and you have support from your funders, then you can play around with pricing, potentially to undercut the competitors and even maybe blow them out of the water. And then also emotional connection. So for example, like in the previous slide, if we have your Apple, probably they're not, it's arguable whether they're the best phones in the market. But they've been able to build a brand around um, their design and the quality, and also as a product that's geared towards creatives. Yeah. So it's almost like if you purchase that, you are purchasing into a certain community. So to win in a market like this, potentially you might also need to um, form a branding that can have an emotional connection with your audience. All right, and how you can do that is you can assess your brand across 4 different dimensions. So strategy, like we mentioned at the beginning when we were starting these master classes, everything flows from the vision that you have. The example we gave was Safaricom. Their vision was to um, make communication affordable and accessible to all Kenyans. So with every new product that you're coming up with, or with every new feature, does it actually fit in line with the goal that you have for the target customer? Sometimes you might find, depending on where you're working, sometimes somebody like a CEO might come and suggest a refocus to prioritize short-term gains over long-term wins. This is a case where you can actually challenge the strategy that the organization is pushing forward and say, no, this does not align with the vision. If we go this direction, then this is how it's going to hurt the brand and hurt our reputation in the market. So brand strategy, close alignment with the mission and vision. Just think of it in that way. Brand execution, it's more around the customer experience. So when you look at all the different touch points, what emotions do they elicit? So if somebody was to interact with the brand on social media, if they were to make a purchase, if they were to go through the full service, what emotions are you eliciting? Yeah. So think of it more of like execution. So this is kind of like um, the experiences you're giving out depending on what the customer values. Alignment is more around adhering to the visual identity, so and tone of voice. So if you have a brand book, ensure that at least everything ties into that because, for example, um, which company? Evelyn, you're in which industry nowadays?
I am in what do I call it? Hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, deal with a lot of customers.
Okay, so let's say hospitality, and let's say maybe you are working at Kempinski. If you can take an example of Kempinski, yeah. So Kempinski, we know in terms of like branding, there's a way they position themselves to be. Is it a 5 star? It's a 5 star, yeah.
It's a 5 star, yes.
Yeah. So 5 star category and how they've chosen to implement themselves. So it shows up, let's say, for example, like even in the logo, in the colors, how their staff dress, how they address you, um, the space, the way it is, like when you get there, you can already feel like there's a level of like calmness that you get as soon as you walk, the tranquility. So brand alignment is more around, does the execution um, reconcile with what your brand stands for. Yeah. So your values and your visual identity, your tone of voice, does it actually, is it like a match? Yeah. Does the customer experience you in terms of like how they, when they meet with you, when you talk with them in the different interactions, um, how does your mission and vision actually come out? So it's more around what they see and what they feel as they interact with you and your product. Brand communication is just ensuring that you're present across all the potential touch points that a customer might interact with you. So when you assess your brand versus your competition, you want to see potentially which area you are not doing very well, and then potentially that could be a focus. So for example, if you're going to go into a new market and you find that, yes, your brand strategy is in line in terms of like the product you're launching with actually supports the mission and vision you have for the business, and then potentially even the teams that you have in the organization, they can deliver the right experience for the customers. But then you notice that On the execution side, it is a new market. So that means probably you haven't really penetrated the market. The customers don't know about you. So if you find that your execution is, your communication is a 2 out of 10, then it is going to be very difficult for you to just launch a product and expect for it to succeed by itself. So that means you might need to first start doing some community engagement and communication around that market first. So introduce yourself, who you are, your mission and vision, what you're trying to achieve, go into the market, do some PR initiatives here and there, so that people can start associating you and understanding what you offer as a business. And then now from there, you can now make the offer to them. Yeah. So these are more areas to help you understand where you need to focus on, especially as you go into a new market or when you're making improvements to your product. When it comes to, let's say, brand alignment. So for example, like Evelyn is in the hospitality space. Yeah. And let's say she's working for Kempinski. And when it comes to the communications and the execution in terms of like the visuals and the interaction. So let's say there's a rude customer service representative. So maybe I wanted to book a massage, it can be for myself or for my girlfriend or my wife. And then I call, maybe the phone rings like 3 minutes before somebody picks up. And then when they pick up, yes, they haven't even greeted me, so I don't know what to expect. And then when I ask about what are some packages you have around relaxation and massages and maybe the sauna and whatnot, and then maybe they say, let me call you back. Maybe potentially they don't even know the kind of features they have. So yes, the products are there. The brand speaks for itself. And if somebody was to actually make a successful booking in terms of like the execution, they'll experience it like how they'll be treated, the level of quality of massage they'll get, we know that it's going to be quite good. On the communication side, we find that the way Kempinski markets itself, it makes people want to actually go there and get some of these services. But on the brand alignment part, when we find that there's a part of the interaction that's not aligning with the strategy, the execution, and how we are communicating, then that means we need to improve in that area. So, for example, Evelyn and team might decide, okay, we need to retrain the entire team in terms of like how to handle customers. That could be a potential solution that they could look at. Or they could just say, okay, where did we get this hire from? Can we not get any more hires from that specific place? Yeah, so they could decide to just plug that all together. Or it could be we need people that actually show the values that we believe in as a brand. So that means during onboarding, we ensure that we take you through the process, we let you know what our values are, and we let you know what we expect from you whenever you interact with a customer. And beyond that, you need to have certain skills and attributes to perform the task that you need to perform that will help us maintain and sometimes even surpass our reputation as a five-star location. So different strategies of go-to-market will also depend on which areas you're doing well and which areas you're potentially lagging behind. So I'll share a brand assessment tool that you can use to get a graph like this for your business at the end. Are you guys okay extending with 5 to 10 more minutes? We're almost done.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, awesome, cool. All right, so you have a good understanding of your customers. You have a good understanding of your competitors in the market. You've done a risk assessment. You've done empathy mapping to understand your customers' needs, motivations, and pain points. So now you're convinced that you can operate in the winning zone because nobody else can offer a similar solution to what you're offering, and the customer actually wants the solution that you have. So the next thing you need to do is to sit down with your leadership team, because this is the point at which now you're coming up with business objectives. Yeah. you want to set an objective for yourself to define how you will measure success. So, are we familiar with the metric systems in the business environment? So things like SMART goals and objectives and key results. Or do I need to
I'm
talk a bit
familiar
of?
with that.
You're familiar with that? Thank you. Windrose, Philip.
I'm familiar with that.
Okay. Windrose. Okay. Awesome. Cool. So you have your objective, what you're trying to achieve. You have your key results. So which are the metrics that will let you know how well you're getting, whether it's close or further away from the objective you have. There are a number of different dimensions that you can look at. So the first thing, strategic alignment. This is usually very important and causes a lot of issues, especially in a company that has managers and different levels of staff working. So you need to ensure that at least anything that you're launching or any new initiative that you start with as a business is directly tied to the strategy and the vision that you have. Yeah. So if it doesn't, that's probably something that you can prioritize because it might be something that might lead to a short-term win, which necessarily won't be easy to sustain because it takes focus away from what you're trying to achieve and your mission as a business. So that is very important. Here it's mostly a yes or no metric. If it doesn't, if it's a no, then you need to have a conversation with your senior leadership team and present the opportunity cost of taking on that specific task or responsibility. Yeah. If they insist, then at least you've made it clear to them, you can proceed. But if you're able to convince them, then you've done your work as well. The next thing is intangible benefits. And intangible benefits are mostly non-monetary and subjective advantages that cannot immediately be quantified in terms of like money. Yeah. So these are things that contribute to customer satisfaction, emotional well-being within your internal teams, and overall user experience. So, for example, like emotional well-being can be things like employee engagement and satisfaction. So, are we doing work that doesn't really tie into the value? Do we believe into the mission and vision? Um, is our feedback hard and things like that? So sometimes it's not only just about hitting the numbers, but how is it also affecting your team? So it's very important to think about that because if your team is not motivated in the right way, there is a chance that it will show up in your go-to-market strategies as they start to interact with customers. So you want to ensure that you've done that well. And the other thing that you can also look at is the brand perception. So let's say you're introducing a new feature or you're getting into a new market and you want to be seen as a product that's high quality and probably fairly priced. Remember the graph that we've drawn in the previous slide? So you can actually measure and see how will you perform against that. So you have that as a target. User experience, maybe you want 5 stars across the board. Yeah. Are there things that you are prioritizing in the experience that can ensure that the customer gives you the right rating? And then as you're going to a new market, also you want to look at market share. And there's a number of different ways in which you can measure market share. You can look at share of voice. So for example, on digital channels and offline channels, if there's conversation happening around your industry, how much are you being mentioned versus what the competitor is getting? You try and assess that. If you use tools like Google Analytics, Google, sorry, I'm hungry. Google Analytics and Google AdWords, whenever you put out a campaign, it can actually let you know whether it's search volumes and whatnot, how much of the percentage you're actually getting for related brand terms. The other one is tangible benefits. So these are quantifiable and measurable advantages that you can put a dollar amount to. Yeah. So revenue, Very important. You can assess that when you're going to market with your campaign. Efficiency improvements. So if your product maybe reduces wastage, reduces the amount of time that is spent on a specific task, this is especially in the software space, then you can actually measure that as well. Being able to acquire customers. So for example, if it's a new product, you might say, I want to get 100 new paying employees by the end of Q1 or Q2. So that becomes the goal that you're measuring yourself against. And then retention. So out of the 100 that purchased in Q1, by the time we're getting to Q4, how many of them have made a repeat purchase? Yeah. So that is the retention. So you try to see of the customers you acquire, how many of them stay along with your brand during certain times, as time changes and as time passes by. And then return on investment, anything that you're spending in that market, how much are you getting back, whether it's in terms of like revenue, customers you've been able to acquire, and market share. And then there's the net present value. Here is where you assess the profitability and viability of a product or a solution by discounting its future revenues. So for the lifetime of this product, because tunajua in life there's the normal curve. Everything follows a normal curve. You start, then there's a place where you'll be the highest, where you'll have like your highest recurring revenues, and then at some point things will start to plateau. It happens across the board. Nobody thought Google would ever lose out on advertising revenue. Nobody thought Facebook would struggle with advertising revenues and what, but it's happening right now. Yeah. So any business follows that curve. What you want to ensure is that are you able to actually in the investment you're making today, this product was to last you 10 years. How much do you think you'll actually make from it? So here, this is more like for the finance people. They can help you get an understanding of how much that investment is, especially if you're a product manager. All right, so once you've understood your market, you've understood your customers, you've done your risk assessment, and you've seen that when I look at the competition, I feel like I have a chance, so let's go. The next thing you want to do is to pick your part on the value chain, on the value stick. So Harvard Business School developed something called a value stick that helps you understand your business across from a customer perspective across a number of dimensions. So the first thing is the customer's willingness to pay. You might have a good solution, but probably it's not solving a problem for a customer that they would be willing to spend money. Remember, we only spend money on things that we can either not do ourselves, so we pay other people to do it for us, or things that are unavoidable. It means we cannot do without. We need lights, we need food, we need water. So definitely, those are things you need to spend money on. Or maybe things that are urgent. Yeah. So if it's an urgent problem, I know that I need to pay to actually get it done. So how does the customer's willingness to pay, which is the goodwill that they're getting after they've made a purchase decision for a purchase decision with your business and your product. And how you calculate it is you look at the price. So the price is what you're charging. Yeah. So when you say, for example, when you look at Cafe and Java, so probably they might have the same products. Yeah. So let's say maybe something like chicken quesadilla. Yeah. You might find that at Cafe, probably maybe it's costing around 900 shillings. And maybe at Java, it's 750 shillings. These two businesses have priced their products using different strategies. But what we know, there are people that will buy the product at 900 shillings, and there are people that will buy it at 750 shillings. And sometimes it could be the same person. So now what a customer's willingness to pay, it shows you that a customer is perhaps even willing to spend up to 1,000 shillings for this product. Yeah. But if I price it at, let's say, 800 shillings, the difference. I know I have gotten a certain level of quality. I know I was willing to pay 200 shillings more, but because I have gotten this product at its existing quality for a price that's slightly lower than what I was willing to pay for it, then I believe I have gotten enough, even sometimes even more fair value than I could have asked for this product. So that's how you look at those two areas. And then finally, cost in terms of like what it takes to deliver that product to the market. Yeah. So this is everything that is going into production and delivery. And then when you're setting a price, your price is usually a markup between everything it took to make that product, and then you add how much you charge, which will now go into the margins, and then now how does that compare? So those three elements, they tie together. The last one is not really important because it still affects cost. But those are the three areas that can also let you know where do you want to lead. To be able to increase your margins, yeah. So if you want to increase your margins, so for example, if you want to make money, so here we are saying competition is all about generating superior performance. And by superior performance, we mean you are either able to charge higher than your competitors or you are able to operate at lower costs. In both scenarios, you have better margins. Yeah. Let's take the first situation. So, for example, if you want to increase the revenue, yeah, there are two things you can do. You can increase price. So, if you decide to increase price, remember your customer has a threshold that they're willing to pay for a specific product. So, let's say in the example we said they're willing to pay up to 1,000 shillings for a chicken quesadilla. So I can decide to increase, if I am a Java, I can decide to increase my prices from 750 shillings to, let's say, 950 shillings. I know I've stretched it because I'm almost reaching the limit that the customer is willing to pay for this product, but I still know that I am able to get some, what's it called? I'm able to get some people who will buy this product. Yeah. But I know that if I increase my price by 1,100, then I've lost that customer because it's for the quality that I'm offering, probably they won't pay. So one way you can do is you can try to increase your price. So essentially what you're doing is you're moving the price lever, you're moving it a bit high, but as you're moving your lever high, that means you are reducing a customer's willingness to pay. That is how price affects how customer makes purchase decisions. On the other end, if you don't want to, for example, for a customer to feel some type of way because you're increasing your prices, then you need to increase their willingness to pay. Yeah. So by increasing their willingness to pay, it means either slightly modifying your product. So let's say, for example, if your chicken quesadilla was only coming, let's say, in 2 or 3 wraps, maybe do you want to increase that into 5 wraps? And as such, it becomes now a meal that instead of only one person eating, potentially it could feed 2 people. And then now you increase your price to 1,800. Yeah. So when a customer now compares and say, okay, I think the portions make sense, and I think even the presentation, how I've been handled, it makes sense, and I think also I can get it at the right time, the right freshness, and such, and things like that. Yeah. When you look at for those people who today is Friday, we are going out. Yeah. So if you find yourself, let's say in a local, yeah, you cannot buy, for example, a bottle of Old Tennessee number 7 at 7,000 shillings in your local because the business surroundings have not increased your willingness to pay for that specific product under the current conditions. But if you are, let's say, to go to what's is it Bar Next Door? Bar Next Door, or these other places. I don't know which places people normally go to nowadays, but to some extent, you find yourself there. And the old Tennessee number 7, now they are selling it at 11,000. Probably the surroundings and in terms of like how the proprietors of the location have positioned that business and the experience, you feel compelled um, for it to be okay for you to pay that amount for something that probably you would have paid 3,000 for at another location. So those are two ways in which you can actually get better margins by playing around with price. So you either just increase your price marginally, but you ensure that you're not getting to the threshold in which a customer is willing to pay, or you increase their willingness to pay. And that essentially means either you do that through branding or you do that through improving the quality of your service offering. On the other end, you can choose to reduce your costs. And by reducing your costs, this means you're either just cutting down on wastage or finding new suppliers that can offer a cheaper price point. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. I'll need to review it. I can't wait to go back again, but it makes sense.
You're lucky because this lesson you'll have it again at some point.
Yeah.
So Philip Windrose.
I'll have to review it, but clear.
So you see these sticks. Kuna hizi ma sticks zenye ziko kando kando on the right side, on the left side.
Yes.
So look at those sticks like a lever. Yeah. So if it is a lever, you can either push it up or down. Yeah. So for you to increase your business margins, you can either increase your prices or you can increase your customers' willingness to pay through branding or improving the quality of your product so that you can charge them more. Yeah. So in the advantage of increasing a customer's willingness to pay is that they won't object to a sudden increase in price. Yeah. But if you are to maintain everything constant, so you're not improving on your branding and you are not improving on your product features, but you decide to still increase your prices, you can only do so much because it will reach a point where a customer is no longer willing to pay for what they are getting. So that is how you look at those two. On the other end, if you look at cost, to get higher margins, because remember the game is you want to get superior performance, and superior performance is measured in margins. Yeah. So if you want to get better margins, it's either you find suppliers that can give you cheaper materials and cheaper inputs into your business so that you can not spend as much to deliver a certain value to customers. Or or you can choose to improve your processes. So maybe introducing automation and maybe getting rid of more manpower, maybe even potentially working overtime and things like that. Yeah, so rewatch the video. I think when you come back with fresh eyes, tutaelewa. Tumebaki wapi? Okay, so about 3 more slides to go. Cool. So once you have an understanding of all those, you've picked in terms of like, this slide affects your pricing strategy. So there are two main ways in which pricing is done. Pricing can be value-based or it can be cost-based. Cost-based pricing is you take how much a product has costed you to bring to market, and then you add a markup. So for example, if this speaker that I am using for this session, if this speaker cost 3,000 to make, I can say I want to make 2,000 from this speaker. Yeah. So I've just added a margin. Yeah. So that is cost-based pricing, where you're just looking at how much do I actually want to make from this product that I'm making. Yeah. And then there's value-based pricing. So for value-based pricing, you play into your customer's emotion. So for example, I can say if we take it to example, what Beats by Dre was doing, yeah. Whenever Dr. Dre was launching a new headphone line, it gets the footballers, so the likes of Neymar, Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. Whenever they're going for a Champions League night, you'll see they're walking out of the bus. They have their Beats by Dre headphones. They're going out there. The likes of other musicians, Kina 50 Cent, Kina all those other people. Whenever they are shooting a new music video, they ensure that that logo can be seen. So to some extent, you can already see that, okay, these are some of the most net worth individuals in the world, and this is the product that they've chosen to endorse. So now they're playing into the influencer side. And by doing so, they've increased the value of the brand. And that means for a speaker that could potentially be going for 5,000 shillings, it's suddenly going for 15,000 shillings. And you'll definitely find a customer who's willing to pay for that. So this value stick, it also affects the pricing strategies you're going to go with. And it also affects your positioning statement. So positioning statement are usually statements that can help you understand who you're targeting, what problem they have, what solution you are offering, and then how is it different to what other people are offering in the market. Yes, Evelyn?
Sorry about that.
Mhm.
I pressed the wrong icon.
Okay, okay. Uh, so positioning statements, it's very important to have this because they will guide all communications. Remember, when you're launching either in a new market or with a new product, probably only the team that worked on developing it really have a very clear understanding of itself and its features. But you have teams. You will have customer service teams. You'll have marketing teams. You'll have the implementation team. So, for example, if it's a service, there are those people who are now interacting with the customers and actually delivering that service. They will need to understand what are some core value elements of this product so that they can better communicate to the customers and deliver on that experience. So, positioning statements helps you understand who the target audience is, what problem they have, which solution you have, and how different it is. So a good example, I was doing a brand positioning workshop with one of my clients. He's also a consultant like me, but he's offering learning and development programs for senior leadership. He's based in Spain, but he's supporting companies who want to build in Africa. But the challenge is Africa is unique in terms of like our own different cultural nuances and practices and local practices. So he wants to empower those businesses to have leaders that are able to navigate the dynamics of being and operating in Africa. So when we developed the positioning statement, we identified. Hello, hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, my internet is misbehaving. So kidogo tu. So we identified who his target audience are and then what they were looking for. So they have a development agenda or related mission in Africa. So that means they want to set up offices in Africa, or they potentially already have offices in Africa, but because it's an international company, it means there's a good mix of foreigners and locals working in the organization. And then his consultancy, which is the product that is offering, um, is a leadership and training program. So he's already identified it is a consultancy, but it is not a management consultancy. It is not a marketing consultancy. It is a leadership and development consultancy. So he specified the category. And then the key benefit that you're offering. So which is the solution? So my leadership programs prepare and upskill senior managers to lead successful teams in Africa. So at least you know, yes, there's Africans who go, and we need to lead them well. And then, unlike other learning and leadership and development consultants who are in the same space as me, my product offers a truly unique, interactive, multicultural, because the individual was actually born in Mali, um, and he's biracial, so he's both African and Spanish. Yeah, so he offers because of that experience, he's able to also understand the European way of thinking and also the African way of life, and he's able to blend that and help create competent leaders who are ready for the African context. So that was his positioning. Yeah. So for each product that you want to launch, for example, like in hospitality, for example, like for Evelyn, you know, you have potentially there's the presidential suite, there's the, I think hotels usually do this. You'll be told there's the window by the pool, there's maybe the other facing the terrace, and maybe there's the one that's just in the middle. Then you have your presidential, you have your people who are traveling with families, maybe you can get an extra bed. So you find like each product has a unique mix of values. Yeah. And therefore, for each product, you will need to create something like this that can clearly articulate who it is targeted for, what problem they have and solution you're offering, compared to other similar solutions in the market. What is the key unique feature or key benefit that creates an unfair advantage that would make that would trigger a customer's willingness to pay? So that's how you use this. I'll share all these templates at the end of the session. And then key areas you need to consider when you have a go-to-market campaign. I think we are all marketers. We've marketed, we've experienced marketing in different forms. So I'm not going to go like, like this is how you create a campaign. I'm just giving you the fundamentals that can help you refine your own processes, because everybody has a different way of doing things. So the first thing is branding. And this is where you establish the identity and perception of your company. So the emotional expression of your business in words, colors, tone of voice, experience, values. Yeah. So here you choose your tone, your values, and your visual identity. So ukienda ku market, how does it look? Which language are we using? Which channels are we going to go to? Where are we targeting, and how do we extend our vision and values to this specific customer segment? So that's one part. The other part is more around storytelling. So storytelling is more around the messaging that you share with customers. Yeah. So here you look at things like your content pillars. If you're struggling with content pillars, the best thing you can do for yourself, go back to the quadrant, the empathy quadrant we talked about. Needs, motivations, pain points, aspirations. As long as you have that, your content pillars will just work themselves out. Yeah, because you understand today, if I want to speak about aspirations, it means I have a content strategy around how my customers can continue to grow in their lives, and you create content around that. If you want to cause controversy and show why you're better than anybody else in the market, focus on the pain points. What are the negative experiences and dissatisfaction they have with existing solutions where you know you can do better than anybody else? Do that. If they have, if you want to trigger, if you want to make purchases, look at their motivations, lock those down. And then engagement is more around building community. So things like Q&A sessions, events and outreach, how you respond to messages and comments. And then there's customer success. So this is more around the experience when you get to delivery, response time, lead management, and all these other different things. Yeah. Yes, and then there's a tool that I will also share with you that can help you choose which channels you need to focus on for your customer. Essentially, you look at them across three different dimensions. The one is lead generation quality. So what is the potential that this specific channel can give you more leads? So for example, if you want to talk to people in their 50s, maybe you might find them on Facebook, you might find them on WhatsApp groups, you might find them on TV, you might find them in church. So that is a channel, you know, that if you focus on those areas, you will find those people. Brand promotion quality is more around the corporate image, the market visibility, and are you able to actually measure results from that market? So digital platforms, very easy to measure, but also not all digital platforms can align. So for example, you say social media, there's TikTok, there's OnlyFans, there's very many different social media platforms. The ones you choose to engage with will let you know whether you will succeed with your customers or not. And then the costs associated with the channel. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the session. There are examples of great go-to-market campaigns, and I've shared many, but I'll allow for you to watch this yourself and see how everything that I talked about connects. I have your certificates. I'll open it for about maybe 2 minutes. I get feedback, and then I think we can end the session, and then I'll share this entire presentation with you. About 3 weeks, you can have access to it. We'll do it again. You'll have access to the videos. You can always come back and watch them again. And also I'll share my certificates shortly. But yeah, happy to open it to the team and get feedback from you. Yeah. How was today's session? Maybe let's start there. Philip Windows?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Today's session was quite informative, despite being good thing you won before you started. Generally, sessions have been enlightening. I can say they have changed my perspective on how I view businesses and how I approach uh, the market and all that. You know, there's a lot of room for growth. Uh, a lot has changed because in the last 1 month, I can say the money was worth it. The paying for this training was worth it, and probably next time if I hear of something in the same line, I pay.
Uh, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Winnie? Hatukusikii Winnie. Yeah. All right. I think Windows has an issue with the microphone.
Oh,
Cool. Yeah. So maybe what we can do, I'll just request for a small favor. I've pasted the link to my Google page. Whenever you get the chance, feel free to leave a review for me. I'll really appreciate it. That said, I want to congratulate the team. Yeah, I'll be sending your certificates in the course of the day. And let's keep interacting as well. Tell your friends about these sessions. Maybe it might also benefit more people as well. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. The recording, once it's done, I'll also upload it in the chat, in the classroom wall. Bye bye.